Okay, now please listen very carefully today, and you should be super focused. And if you're having any doubts, you should clear with me by today's class itself. Do not wait and think, what if I don't clear my doubt? So I'm going to start now, guys. So the point is, should you play with activity or should you play with passivity? Suppose everyone answer me this before I start. Should you play with active pieces or should you play with passive pieces? What should you do? You should play with active
pieces.
Correct.
Active.
Now, suppose if I give you this example, like you're having two choices. Either you're down one pawn, but your pieces are very active, or you're up a pawn, but your pieces are very passive. Which situation would you like to choose? Down a pawn with active pieces or up a pawn with passive pieces? What is
Down upon active pieces.
yeah.
Down upon active pieces because
Yes,
we can win the pawn back.
exactly. Now, please remember, in chess, pawns are not very important. If your pieces are active, if your pieces can become active, if they're not passive, then you are having a very good position. It doesn't matter if you're down one pawn. It is not that important. Now, for example, if I show you some simple ideas, you have to first of all understand what is activity and passivity. So suppose I'm putting a rook and bishop, and they are very passive because they are blocked by your own pawn. So a piece becomes passive if it is blocked by your own pawn. Remember it. Okay. If I do this, now in this case again, my rook and the bishop are still passive, but they are slightly better placed as compared to the previous case. Now if I do this, rook and bishop are still passive because they are blocked by our own pawn, but at least the situation is slightly better than previous case. So I will say they are not very passive, but they are slightly passive, something like that. Imagine instead of a pawn, if I keep a knight. Now, if your pieces are blocked by another piece of yours, it is still passive, but it is very slightly passive. Why? Because the moment the knight moves anywhere, your rook and bishop are totally free. In the case of pawn, however, you cannot free your rook because wherever the pawn is, suppose in this case, you can free the bishop by moving the pawn ahead, but you cannot free your rook. Rook will always be passive. And also sometimes opponent will have pawns like this. And in that case, if the opponent has a pawn like this, your pawn cannot go forward, and that will be one of the reasons your bishop and rook will be stuck. And understand this point because this is the highlight of today's class. If your pawn cannot go forward, the bishop placed behind the pawn will be very, very passive. And this is something I'm going to teach you today. I want to give you at least 7 to 10 examples. And in every single example, I'll be trying to show you if you're having this kind of situation, how can you deal with that? So first of all, I hope this is clear how to find passive pieces. Now, another thing is, suppose I remove my pawn. Just imagine I remove this pawn like this. And if I say that my rook is attacking a pawn which is protected by another pawn, the rook is still passive. In the other case, if the rook is attacking a pawn which is protected by another piece, now here the rook of white is active because it is playing a role of attacking a pawn, and the opponent rook has become passive because it is playing a role of defending the pawn. Obviously, the rook cannot move because the pawn will be gone. But in this case, suppose imagine a situation like this. Now, is the black rook required to stay on the e file? Can it not move? It can, right? Because it's not doing the job of defending the pawn. So it doesn't matter where the black rook is. But in this case, suppose if I remove the pawn like this, now black rook has to play the role of defending the pawn. So whose rook is passive, whites or blacks? Everyone, quickly, fast. Blacks, yeah. Because black's rook is playing the role of defending the pawn. We are playing the role of attacking the pawn. But suppose in this case, if your piece is attacking another piece, and if that piece is protected by a pawn, doesn't matter. It is still active. your rook is still active, because the moment the piece moves somewhere, your rook becomes super active. So remember that. Another thing is, if suppose you're having a knight, please pay attention, all of you, listen very carefully. If you're having a knight and if they're having pawns like this, now please understand, your knight cannot go on any square. And these pawns are making your knight restricted. So I'm using these specific terms. When I say the word restriction, it means actually your knight is not attacking any of the pawns, but it cannot travel anymore. Why? Because all the squares where it wants to go are controlled. So in many cases, what you will see, that suppose you're having a knight on g3. Just imagine you're having a knight on g3 and some other pawns are like that. And black has pawn structure like this. And maybe knight is over here, king is over here. Now please see this position. And if there's a pawn structure like this, now please see this position.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Luhas. How are you?
Good.
Luhas, today is a very important class. Are you ready for today's class?
Yes. Do you
Yes.
know I won a trophy in Swiss tournament?
I saw that. Yes. Now I want you to pay full attention, Luhas. Okay, full attention, like 100%, not even 99. Okay. All right. Now see.
Yeah.
I was talking about restriction. Now, this knight cannot go here. Can you guys see that? Because it is restricted, correct? But it can travel like this. Now, suppose if I remove this pawn for this pawn, just imagine, okay? Now, can you see it can still travel like this? But the moment black plays the move g6, suddenly the knight is restricted and the knight has become passive. If the pawn is over here, now is the knight active or passive? All of you. Can the white knight jump or not jump?
Yes, it can jump.
Yes,
It can jump. So it is active. But the moment I play g6, now it doesn't even matter if I'm having my knight over here. Suddenly it has become restricted. So remember that, okay? Whenever there's a knight on g3, if you can play g6, you are restricting the knight. So for example, if you are having knight over here, and if you are playing with white pieces, what will you play as white, guys? How do you make this knight very bad? What to do? Show of hands. What should I play in order to restrict the knight? Because the knight wants to become active. I don't want to allow that to happen. Yes, Harshit, answer for the class quickly. What to do? You are on mute, Harshit.
Oh, put up onto G3.
Exactly. I hope everyone was having the same answer, yeah? Very simple. Because the moment you play g3, you control all the jumping squares of the knight and suddenly the knight is restricted. The moment you restrict a piece, you make them passive. So these are few ideas you have to remember in order to understand passive pieces and active pieces. To make your pieces active, first of all, you have to identify what are the pieces that are still passive. Only those pieces can become active. Yeah, you can try to make passive pieces into active pieces. So first of all, you have to learn to identify what are passive pieces. Now I'm changing the board and I will teach you what kind of bishops are passive. So first of all, imagine a pawn structure like this. Please pay attention. And now from here onwards, the class becomes slightly challenging. Now please pay attention. Suppose you're having something like this structure. And I keep my bishop over here, keep my knight over here. They have this and this. Now please look at this very carefully. First of all, and imagine a pawn like this. So let me just draw a normal pawn structure. So look at your bishop. What do you think? Is your bishop super active? Super active? No, of course not, because it's restricted by your own pawn. I said before, if your bishop is blocked by your own pawn, it is passive. Now, big question comes, what to do? How do I make it active? So, if you push the pawn, now please pay attention. If you push the pawn, say, okay, by the way, before I do that, this bishop is active or passive? What will you say? Active, because it's attacking a pawn. It is attacking a pawn that is not protected by your pawn. So see, you guys just said that this bishop is active and your bishop is passive. Now see, some magic happens. You go e5. They take, And now you don't take, you push it. Now, what did you do? You sacrificed a pawn. You sacrificed, you gave it for free. But the compensation is that the moment you play knight to e4, now look at this beautiful bishop of black. It has become active or passive?
Passive.
Passive. Remember the question I asked all of you at the start of the class. Would you be in a situation where you're down a pawn with active pieces as compared to be up a pawn with passive pieces? All of you said that you want to be in a situation with case one, yeah? Down a pawn with active pieces. This is what I'm trying to teach you today. How to learn these pawn sacrifices in middle game to make your pieces active. It is black to play. And I will try to show you at least 6-7 examples. When I'll be showing you first 1 or 2, 3 examples, I will not ask questions because I just want all of you to understand the pattern. Once you have understood the pattern, from the 4th example, I'll ask you guys question. Is that clear, all of you?
Yeah.
Now see. So let me explain first 3 positions. So everyone hear me out. Just hear me out, okay? See, I see my bishop is passive. It is stuck behind my own pawn. I don't like that. My knight is passive because it's blocked by my own pawn. Again, I don't like that either. So what I do is, from black, I push the pawn. And the moment you push the pawn, you're making a space for your pieces. You're making a space for your pieces. You're not trying to exchange with them. Because if they exchange, please understand this, you should not try to take. Because if you take it, his bishop will again become active, kind of open. White took the bishop. How should I take? By the queen or by the knight?
Knight.
Think. Who wants to sit here? Knight wants to sit here or queen wants to sit here?
Knight.
Knight. So why will you take by the knight? Because then who will sit here? So you want to take by the queen. And he takes. What to do, guys? He wants to again take so that he makes his bishop happy. Do you want to make his bishop happy? Of course not.
No.
So we push it. And now see, after they make a move, you play knight e5. And what just happened is we sacrificed a pawn. But the compensation black got is activity of the knight. We created a hole. We created a home for our knight on e5. At the same time, the white bishop very nicely has become passive. It's blocked by its own pawns. This is what I'm trying to teach today. Tarun, are you able to understand this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go for the next example. Now again, I just want you guys to just sit there and try to learn this for next one more example. Then I will ask you questions. So even if you're having some doubts, just hear me out for 10 more minutes and then I will give you the chance to ask your doubts. So here it's black to play. Again, you can see the same problem. Your bishops are kind of stuck. And you don't want your bishops to be stuck. So you want to create some space. So black again goes for the same idea. Pawn e4. Now the point is they cannot go back. Why? Because suddenly we are having a fork. So they can do nothing. So they have to, after this, they take like this. Okay, we take back. Now they go takes. Should we take or should we not take?
Not
Not take. Because we push it. We push it. This is what is the pattern. He goes back and now we have created a space for our bishop. And now suddenly we can bring most of our pieces. Queen e5, suppose he goes here. Bishop e5. Queen comes in the game. And very nicely you can see all your pieces so nicely placed on this diagonal. The bishop is very active. This bishop is free. What you can do is you can bring the rook over here, start playing b5, b4 later on. Now, I'm not going to show you the full game because in today's class, the purpose of the class is not to focus on one example rather than show you multiple examples, but of the same theme. That's what I'm trying to do. So we are not interested in full games. So if you're wondering what happens after that, we'll see later on at some different level. But today we are just understanding example by example. Now it is, in this case, white to play. And this example was played by former world champion Mikhail Botvinnik. And by the way, this idea of this pawn sacrifice was popularized by two former world champions. One was Capablanca back in early 1900s. Then there was Botvinnik in 1930s and 1940s. And this was Botvinnik idea to go for e5 and then f5. So white goes for, because white wants to create space, white wants to create space here for our pieces. So white goes for this. The bishop is trapped. Bishop doesn't have too much space. They take. Again, guys, what do we do? Now, I hope everyone should remember.
Don't take.
Don't take. What rather?
Take, push.
Push. And the moment you do that, look at this beautiful bishop. Again, it's totally trapped. And you have also created a space for your pieces to jump. Now he goes back and you jump. He castles and you bring queen out. And later on, again, bishop will come out like this. Rooks, and you can play a3, b4 to attack his king, and you are completely fine. Just to show you a couple of moves. All your white pieces are so active. Knight is active because it's attacking a bishop, attacking a pawn which is defended by a piece, not a pawn. Bishop is attacking a piece, queen is attacking a piece, and we can, at some point, we can play pawn f6. But his bishop is totally passive. This knight is totally restricted, doesn't have any jumping square. I don't know about this knight, where does it want to go? It cannot jump anywhere. So this is again restriction. Please understand what is restriction. So if I just go and remove the diagram, look at this. The knight cannot jump here because of your pawn. Same point, it cannot jump here because of another pawn. So again, do you remember the same example I was showing you? The knight is again restricted. So here, white just sacrificed a pawn, but the compensation white got was huge. So this is what I want you guys to do. Play chess in a fearless manner. When you go for tournaments, when you play chess, you should not think, oh my God, I'm down a pawn. Maybe my opponent will win. Don't think like that. Go there and sacrifice if you want to, but play actively. Play fearless. Don't think that I will lose my pawn. What will happen? Should I take this risk of sacrifice? What if I lose? So, I have seen this in many students. The students who think about wins and losses more, they are not able to take risks. But the students who are like, I just want to go there and play. Because I love the game so much, I just want to go there and play and I just want to attack. Those students find risky sacrifices. I want you guys to focus on, rather than winning and losses, focus more on what is happening on the board, how to play actively. Now, in this case, I'll be taking questions. It is black to play. What would you guys do? Now you can think, and if you have some answers, you can raise the hand.
Pawn up so that our bishop is free.
So you want to play pawn f4, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, all right, got it. So I want to now ask Devang. Devang, you also raise your hand. What is your answer? Can unmute.
So both of our bishops are and a rook. They are all
Passive.
they're all passive, sir. So then, sir, I was thinking that we can get the bishops active by pushing the pawns, but then our rook is still passive, sir. So how do we? So for the bishops, we can push the two pawns, the ones on f5 and e5, sir.
But which one you want to do first?
So the one on e5, since then our black bishop will attack something.
Okay, all right. Anish, what about you? What is your move?
I was about to say the same as him.
Same answer, e5. Okay, what about Harshit? Same answer? Everyone, same answer, e5? Now see, okay. Everyone, you have, like, you guys are correct. E5 is the correct, like e5 to e4 is the correct move. But see why? Now there's something in chess, it's called as drawback principle. I will take another class when I'll be explaining about drawback principle, but just understand what does it mean. Drawback principle means, so every move, whenever you play chess, every move in the middle game has some good points and has some bad points. Suppose if a move has bad points, so what opponent can do? Opponent can try to take advantage of that bad point. And if there's a good point, sometimes opponent can stop that, because if the opponent knows that some good move is going to come, maybe opponent can stop that good point to happen. But if there's a bad point with any move, opponent can just try to take advantage. For example, the moment you play the move pawn f5 to f4, now please understand what's going on. This pawn here, it's controlling e4 and it, okay, let me use a different color. It's controlling e4 and g4. Now see, the moment you push it forward, what happens basically, you are losing the control of e4 and g4. And most importantly, you're opening up this whole diagonal. So what is the drawback? The drawback is, first of all, I can give you a small check. You move away. And now after I save the bishop, now see, my pieces will be super happy over here. You opened up this bishop, but suddenly what did you do? You closed your own bishop behind the pawn chain. Yeah. And suppose, just to make few things clear, after this, the moment I play this, your bishop is just stuck. Cannot come out ever. Whatever you play, this bishop cannot come out. You can play bishop f5, I can just ignore it and castle long. You take, how should we take as white, guys? How should white take? Everyone, with the pawn, with the queen, with the knight. How should you take on this square?
With the knight.
With the knight, very good. With the knight, because if you take by pawn, now what happens? I can sacrifice, or maybe I can just exchange, and suddenly this diagonal has become open. And this bishop is again back to life. If you take by queen, then queen is again not having the correct job. Queen should not block one of the pawn. It should be other pieces, smaller pieces. And now this bishop cannot come out in any single manner. And this is what you have to understand, why f4 is not the correct move. So here, what should we do first is, we first play e4, which you guys said. Now the bishop is trapped. Obviously, they have to take it. There's no other choice. Now what to do? Everyone, what to do?
Push.
Push. Very important. Good. Very, very important. Please don't do a mistake of taking. Otherwise, the moment you take, you're just helping the opponent. Look at both the beautiful bishops. Now, your bishops are also open, but at the same time, their bishops are also open. It's like you're trying to open up your own pieces. At the same time, opponent pieces are also getting open up. So you're not doing too much good for your position. Rather, the moment you push it, and okay, wherever they go, doesn't matter too much. Now look, his bishop will be very passive. So again, we can bring the knight out, sit over here. He goes. Now we can do this. We can bring queen g5, just queen g5. What are we doing? We are attacking the pawn, yeah? So if it doesn't do much, I'm just going to take the pawn. So he goes back, knight e5. And now you can understand this bishop is just gone. Even though I cannot take the f1 bishop, you can see the f1 bishop can never come out in the game. It's totally stuck behind its own pawn. It's very passive. Suppose they go knight f3. What should I do, guys? What to do? They are attacking my queen and attacking the knight. What to do? Take your time here. Think. Don't rush. And I want all of you to participate. Don't just think if my answer is bad or not bad, my answer is correct or incorrect. Don't think like that. Whatever comes to mind, speak up. Develop confidence of speaking whatever comes to mind. Calculate and speak up. Don't hesitate in class. Yes, Anish, go ahead.
Move queen to g6.
Queen g6 is a good move. You're deciding to not exchange. It's very, very important. Please understand, guys, knight f3 is not a good move if you take. Why? Because, okay, for the simple reason they take, and now this file has become open. Now, whose king will be under more trouble? Whites or blacks?
Blacks.
Blacks. So we don't want that. We don't want that. Also, if you go back to e7, what is the queen doing on e7? Nothing. Queen is again very passive. Queen g6 is decent. You're trying to attack a pawn which is protected by pieces. So queen is active still. Okay. There are other choices also, guys. Look for other choices. Black can play queen h6. Why? Because whatever they do, suppose just to make a bad move or random move, you're having this move, knight g3. We are utilizing the pin on the pawn. The pawn cannot really take because thank you for the rook. And if they decide to shift the rook like this, we can just take the bishop, king takes, And okay, you can just follow up with the random game like bishop g4.
Sir, if they take by the bishop.
Sorry?
So if
Uh-huh.
they take by the bishop.
If they take by the bishop, then it's even more good for us, yeah? Queen is becoming super aggressive. Look at this. Look at this beautiful queen on the diagram. The king is in the center. King cannot castle. You know, if they do this, this is just game over, by the way. This is just game over. This is just game over for the opponent. Okay, all right. So you guys were correct that you should play e4. But suppose sometimes you can also be in the receiving end. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you give your opponent a lesson. Some other days your opponent gives you a lesson, right? That's what chess is. So suppose you are on the receiving end and your opponent plays this move. What will you play? Is this move the correct idea?
No.
No. So remember, the drawback is they're not controlling the square. So first of all, you go check. He goes here, bishop f2. And again, you can see that bishop e4 will be very strong. White to play. Think. And all of you should participate, yeah? Not only a few students. I want everyone to participate. It doesn't matter if your answers are correct or not correct, but I want you guys to participate. Think and then raise your hands.
Move the f pawn to f5 so I can move the bishop.
But okay, you answer me this question. The moment you play your f pawn, what is the drawback with that move? See, you're losing control of one square turn. The moment you push f pawn forward like this, what are you building here? You're building a big cage for your bishop.
Oh.
That's the drawback. One bishop got happy, fine, understood. But the other one becomes stuck. And you're also helping this bishop of the opponent to become open. So that's why whenever you think of a pawn move, guys, everyone, think of what is the drawback I'm creating with this move. Because every single pawn move has certain drawback. For example, suppose right now the pawn is controlling these two squares, yeah? Everyone, correct? Suppose, imagine in your mind, the moment I push the pawn, please imagine, the moment I push this pawn forward, what will be the squares I'll be losing the control of? E4 and G4. So these are drawbacks. Similarly, in this case, when the pawn is here, it's controlling E5 and G5. The moment I push F5, what is the drawback I'm creating? E5 and G5. I'm losing the control over those squares. So maybe that's not the right approach. Okay, Anish, what about you? You were also raising hand. Tell me what to do.
I would move the pawn to e5.
Okay, how many of you want to move pawn e5? Please show of hands at once. I want to play pawn e5. Who wants to? Luhas, you also want to play pawn e5?
Yes.
Okay, Luhas, what if pawn take pawn? What do you want to do after that? Suppose pawn take pawn happens. Fe5, what do you want to do? Again take?
Push the pawn to f5.
Why do you not want to take, by the way? Don't you want to get your pawn back?
Yes.
You want to get the pawn back or you don't want to get the pawn back?
I want to get the pawn back.
So you said you will push it. So now again answer me. After e5, fe5, will you take the pawn? Will you push the pawn?
Push the pawn.
So you will not take the pawn back, right? So here, now please understand, guys. Please understand this concept. They will take. Please do not take. Please do not take back. Otherwise, you are again helping them to open up their own pieces. You push it. They will go back. And suddenly what you created? You created a space for your bishop and knight to jump. And this bishop became open. At the same time, with just one sack, you developed two pieces of yours. At the same time, you made opponent bishop very passive, opponent knight very passive. Just one sacrifice is giving you so much things. And now we can just play bishop d5 to bring one of our bishops out. h6. At this point, I just want to show you what can we do. What does it mean to play, sacrificial chess? You should note that you're having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces and also a pawn that are attacking towards the opponent king. 5 pieces are there to attack the opponent king, apart from this rook. From the black side, this pawn is a defender. Rook is a defender. Maybe the knight is a defender. That's it. This rook is out of the game. Bishops are out of the game. C6 knight is out of the game. Queen is out of the game. So when you see that you are having so many attackers, you should think of sacrifices and opening the king. Bishop h6. What happens after they take? f6. Look at this. Because what is the drawback? When this pawn was controlling f6 and h6, the moment the pawn moved, bishop h6, the moment the pawn moved, it left the control over f6. Are you guys following? So what do? We take advantage of that. Now, the knight moves. Now, what was the square knight was controlling? Here and here. Knight moves. Okay, also here, d5, I forgot. So, bishop d5 check. He moves, and now we bring final piece in the game. Idea, queen e6. And there is no much way to stop queen e6. Suppose you play something like this. Guys, what should I play? White to play and look for attack. How do I make queen g6 work? Is there any way to make queen g6 work? Is there any way to make queen g6 work? Yes, Harshit, go ahead. Come on. How do I make queen g6 work?
Move the bishop. Oh no, move the pawn one step forward.
Exactly, move pawn one step forward. Now he takes. Doesn't matter. Okay, you can take if you want to, but obviously they will not take. They'll move the queen like this. Okay, queen g6. He goes back and bye-bye. End of story. This is what I want you guys to learn. Play fearless chess. Do not think of wins and losses. Because see, why I'm repeating myself again and again? Because I've seen many students who think if I lose this combination, I will lose the game. What will happen? Nothing will change. Please understand, winning and losing is part of the game. You should not play chess because you want to win the game. You should not play chess because you are afraid of losing. If you are afraid of playing the game, why to learn the game in the first place? Right? Isn't it the point? If you are afraid of learning, like if you're afraid of losing the game, what is the point of even starting to learn the game then? You should not feel afraid at any point. Please understand. I've seen so many students, because the student who is afraid of losing the game will never sacrifice, will never make this decision. Because to make this sacrifice, you have to be fearless. You have to be like warrior. You play chess to attack. You don't play chess to just draw, to just, maybe not blunder, to be afraid, oh my God, what happens if I lose? You should not be super happy when you win the game. Because you should also not be super sad when you lose the game. If you lose the game, okay, fine. Just see what happened in the game, where was the mistake, forget about it, go for the next one. Don't take chess victories and chess losses to your heart. Okay? Because if you will take victories to your heart, you will also take losses to your heart. You play the game just because you want to learn and improve. That's it. End of story. Going for next example. Okay, so in this one I was asking, yeah, it's white to play. What do I do? So everyone start thinking. White to play, what to do? How do you make your pieces happy? This time I will be asking with Arijit. And after Arijit, I'll be asking with Devang. So you guys quickly think what to do.
I think to put our e-pawn one step up.
Okay, and if pawn take pawn, what to do?
Push the pawn.
Push the pawn. Push the
Oh,
pawn.
I wanted to say that last
But
second.
good. Good that you guys are now able to find these themes. See, that is why I say, whenever you learn ideas, please listen very carefully. When you learn a new idea, suppose you see any game, suppose you see, how many of you watch games on YouTube, chess games on YouTube, or maybe on Google, or maybe anywhere on the internet? Do you guys watch? Okay. If you guys watch, suppose you guys are watching a game in the Queen's Gambit. Let's just say that you guys are watching a game in Queen's Gambit. Don't just close the game after you've watched it. If you watch a game in Queen's Gambit, watch 3 more games in Queen's Gambit. Only then you will learn. So what I'm doing here, I'm teaching you one idea. But if I show you only one position with one idea, you will not learn anything. You will forget it in just a week. If you will see at least 5 to 10 to 15 examples in this particular idea only, you will not forget. So if you're watching a particular game, if you're watching a particular opening, maybe on the internet, don't just watch for once. Watch 3 to 4 more similar games. Suppose you're watching a game and you want to learn Spanish. You're watching a game in Spanish opening, Royal Pace. Don't just watch one game. Watch, just write, Spanish opening wide games. Whole list will come. Watch first 4 games and you will be kind of learning a decent idea about, okay, what is the opening about? And then discuss with me. All right. So don't just watch for once. If you're watching any theme, get examples. Try to see more and more examples. Okay, so the idea is correct, everyone. E5. The point is, if you play F5, there's a drawback. What is the problem with F5? Who can tell me? Yes, Anish, what is the problem with F5?
It loses control of G5 and E5.
Exactly. So what will black play instead? Instead of just taking it, black will play knight E5. And black is now very happy. So first E5, so that knight E5 is not a possibility because the pawn is there. And the moment they take, now we don't want to take because we are helping them. So we want to push. And they go here and suddenly queen F2, attacking knight, they protect. And now we are happy to take the square. Whatever they do, they take F6 is a fork. We're going to threaten F6. They capture, we capture. Look at this knight going nowhere. And look at our pieces. Suddenly, guys, our pieces are so aggressive on the king side. Can you see them? So aggressive. They go back, attacking queen. Okay, fine. Shift. They go F5. Now here, see how white is trying to bring more and more. Sorry, bad. How white is trying to bring more and more pieces towards the king. Try to learn this technique. Bishop G5 first. Because it's a tempo. It's attacking the queen. So that's why they will not take the knight. They will save. They saved. Okay, fine. And now, boom. Check. They take. I don't want to take here. I don't want to take. I'm not interested. Boom. Bringing more pieces. See why? If bishop take bishop, what is the drawback? The bishop is controlling something. It's controlling E5 pawn. If take, rook check, king moves, rook take pawn. And I can show you countless number of ways to win this. First of all, checkmate. Just one second. Let me complete, Suhas. And queen goes here. How do I distract the queen? So that I give a checkmate. Rook takes. And doesn't matter what are they going to do. I'm threatening rook f8 mate. And I'm threatening queen here. So suppose if they do a mistake like this. Okay, one more take. And the knight is pinned. Whatever they do, checkmate. Knight cannot take queen, spin.